It's like our conversation was like naturally going towards like what we were going to talk about
I
in the
know, that's why
podcast. I was like,
that's why
I don't want to have to repeat ourselves because it sounds like we're already like getting into
no, it's good. That's why you just start. Trent's like, I should just press go and let's go.
it.
Well, welcome to the Shoot It
Yeah,
Straight
yeah.
podcast. We're officially rolling.
Yeah, awesome. So do the intro with our special guest today.
We have our first special guest that we've ever had on the Shoot It Straight podcast.
Right.
Neal Valera, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks for the invite. It's an honor to be the first guest too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you do that, but you're our first official guest, and we're not in person, but basically it feels like you're here. Neal's the co-founder of Stick Mobility, which I definitely want to get into your business and talk a little bit about Stick Mobility, because you guys have been around for a while, actually. When did you guys get started?
So we officially created it in 2015. We started selling our first sticks and had our first certification in 2016.
Okay. You know, it's funny because I was when we were prepping for the podcast earlier today, Neal, Cody and I were talking, and I got to thinking of the first time I actually tried Stick Mobility, and I remembered it was in Little Rock, Arkansas, when we were road tripping on our way down to moving to Austin, Texas. Right? Is that where we stopped through?
Actually, I kind of forgot about that.
I know, and this is fun and like a full circle moment, actually. So this was in April 2019. So this time 4 years ago, we were driving through Little Rock, and we stopped to see my friend Eric at his he was basically at like was it a personal training studio, or was it just a traditional gym down there?
I think it was like a private, semi-private studio.
Well, one of the trainers there was pretty awesome. He was, and he had sticks there. He was a certified. He was like, so I feel like this was Neal's like, I probably know exactly who that guy is, but how many trainers in Little Rock are Stick Mobility certified? But anyway, he whipped out his Stick Mobility sticks, and we did like 15 or 20 minutes session with him, I think.
And it was really cool. I think he showed me like the slap shot.
Yeah, we definitely did bow and arrow.
And I was like, wow, these things are awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it was hard. And that was funny because I was like, I'm going to bring that up today when we chat with Neal, because I think that would be kind of a fun full circle moment. But anyway, that was truly like our gateway drug into Stick Mobility and learning how to use them. And then how long did it take you to buy your first set of Stick Mobility sticks?
Not long.
Yeah.
Not long.
Yeah, so. Cody was an early adopter. So if you were around in 2015, 2016,
a couple years after that.
Years.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. So like, kind of tell us about how they came to be, and like, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background. I know you're a former D1 golfer, right?
Yep. Yeah, I played golf at San Jose State. I graduated in 2006, and originally I wanted to play pro golf, but just wasn't quite good enough. I mean, you guys probably know a lot of professional golfers, and it's pretty hard out there. I mean, you can go out and shoot in the 60s and every tournament you play in, but the higher level you get, it just gets it's brutal. So anyways, I've been training my whole life, and I didn't want to sit down behind a desk. So like, you know what, I'm gonna combine my passion and the career together. So I got into training, started that in 2007, end of 2007. Started just at a basic gym, it's called Bally's. I don't know if you guys remember that.
I remember Bally's.
Oh, yeah. Those don't exist anymore, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think they're gone now.
Rest in peace.
So started there, and then went out on my own, started my own training business in 2009. And then just kept studying, kept learning. And then in 2013, I learned stick yoga. Right. So this was kind of the inspiration for Stick Mobility. So we learned we had a mentor, his name was Dr. Fagenholtz, me and a few buddies. And it was mainly stretching for the stick, right? So you're doing different positions, using the stick for leverage, kind of what we do now, but there was no real strength behind it.
Yeah.
So what we did was we basically started putting our strength and conditioning background into it, and started adding isometrics, figuring out different positions that would benefit multiple movements. And then what we were using originally was bamboo.
Is that what stick yoga used? Or I was going to ask what kind of stick, I've never heard of stick yoga.
They use these rattan sticks, right? So they're this basically form of bamboo. Problem is, anytime they would flex, because when we started adding in the strength element, we started flexing the sticks. And which you guys have probably, I mean, you've done it now with the bow and arrow, and you've probably seen some of the different moves. We started flexing the sticks, and we're like, shoot, this isn't going to work. Because they basically bend, and then they would stay bent.
Right.
Yeah.
So then with a couple clients, we partnered up with a couple clients, one of my clients, to create the sticks. So they figured out the right materials, got this thing together, and then we put some programming behind it. That's how it all started. So we had an opportunity from Coach Chip Morton of the Cincinnati Bengals. We just started putting stuff out there on social media. And this is at the time we were just teaching with bamboo sticks. We had no intention of making it what it is now, right? We're just teaching group classes for our clients, just for some extra business. And, you know, we've always believed that, look, the foundation of health is movement, right? The foundation of performance is movement. So how can we create something that's scalable that we can give to all our clients, whether they want to use it for recovery or eventually enhance their performance? And Coach Chip Warren saw this just on our social media page, and he happened to be coming down to play the 49ers. So he reached out. He's like, hey, how far are you guys from the stadium? Like 15 minutes out. So we met up with him for 2 hours one day. He loved it. I was like, do you guys have a course? Like, no. Like, so then we created one, and then it all got started. So that's how we got our first opportunity. The first certification we ever taught was with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
That's awesome. I kind of wanted to ask too, like, what was your big break? Would you think that connection right there was probably your big break, or?
Yeah, that's kind of what got it going there. So that was our first one, right? So that was just with the Bengals. And then he had, you know, he talked to different people. And then we held our first certification, like public certification, probably 3 months after that. And we had people come down from, I mean, this is just from social media, right? We had people coming from Germany, from Korea.
Wow.
And then one of the athletic directors, not athletic directors, but the head of athletic performance and sports medicine from USC came, Dr. John Meyer. He loved it. And he really got us going with all the professional teams in Southern California. And it kind of just spread from there.
So how did you guys get it from the whole like bamboo stick to, and I know you didn't start as a bamboo stick. I know that came from the yoga practice, but how did it evolve the like more product side to the orange stick that it is now with the cool rubber ends? That's kind of, it's what makes, of course, your stick unique and makes it the stick mobility stick.
So we tried PVC, right? But
yeah.
It's kind of brittle, and it's also if you flex them, they shatter. You know, you get shrapnel going everywhere.
Right.
So we're like, well, this is not going to work. Also with just PVC, like we tried putting like tape on it and everything, but the grip wasn't very good. So then my partners, they figured out the right blend of plastics. So they got this together, and we just said, hey, let's just go with orange. Bay Area, got the Giants here. You know, it's a cool color, stands out. So that was basically the whole premise behind the orange. And then with the grips, we ended up, like our very first sticks were tennis grips.
I see that. I can see that now.
But we had to hand wrap those. I'm like, oh, this is a pain in the ass. I'm like, why don't we make something that's more like a golf grip, right? Something that you can just kind of slide on there. So, and then now with that, there's also texture on it. So you get some of that feedback, but at the same time, you get the rubber on the end so that there's good anchoring on the ground or on the wall or on the ceiling for when you do want to hang on the sticks, or you do want to anchor you want to start to flex the sticks, anchoring them into the wall.
No, that's awesome. The reason I asked too is because I think one of the coolest things about stick mobility is how like their longevity is awesome. I mean, fitness equipment in general, like depending on what it is, doesn't necessarily have, I feel like the shelf life. I mean, we've had ours now we know for literally exactly 4 years or maybe a little less.
And I've shipped them around across the country and back in a pod.
We've moved with them. You've used them with
tons of other, I mean, the pod was, you know, crammed completely to the top to bottom with a whole gym in it. So there's 80-pound kettlebells rolling around in there and barbells and beds and all this kind of stuff. And they've lasted across the country and back couple times
in the heat, like whatever. I mean, and they really don't look and they also don't look worn out. They look the same as when you bought them, and that's kind of wild.
And like neither one of them are bent. Like it's still, actually one of them is slightly bent at this point. I think it's the way I stored it, but I mean, it's been years and I've put them through, and I've had big old boys like taking the bow and arrow to the brink, and and I'm glad you picked orange because it's on my alma mater, Oklahoma State. It's orange and black.
Oh,
so,
right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Maybe that's what really maybe that's what really drew me in at first.
There's probably something about the color orange. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I think the longevity of those of your sticks are awesome. I mean, that's probably one of the, I mean, maybe not a good business model if you want people buying more.
So when you set out to create them, did you have a certain athlete or person in mind that, you know, kind of inspired you to make them, and you know, who they're super beneficial for?
Not necessarily, you know, just our clients, really. It was meant we want it to be for everybody. So whether it's used for rehab or on the performance side, at the foundation of everything is movement and mobility, right? So whatever track you decide to go on, whether it's, hey, I want to be a power lifter, you do need some sort of movement. If I want to go into golf or track and field, or you're just mom and dad and you just need enough health, enough movement, enough strength, you have to have some base, right? And then from there you can expand it to whatever you want.
Awesome.
Yeah. So how has that evolved? Now that it's been 7 years, who makes up the majority of your client base, or what's your demographic like?
I'd say that our biggest clientele is still trainers.
Okay.
Right. Trainers, strength coaches, physical therapists, chiropractors. And then from there it spills out to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of golfers, because they get it. You know, they understand that you do need some level of flexibility and mobility to swing a club.
I'm glad you said those two words. So I would love to hear your, you know, not necessarily definition, but you know, elaborate on mobility versus flexibility, and you know, the strength element that the sticks have in there, and why that's so important in gaining more range of motion.
Yeah, well, you know, we look at mobility as simply as just the ability to move, right? So to be able to move, you need enough strength and you need enough range of motion in your joints, and then you need coordination to put it all together. So I think some of the misconceptions with flexibility is hey, I'm just going to hang out in this stretch, but that may not do anything for you, right? Especially if you're trying to produce force.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need to be able to get into a certain position, but then control it and react and be able to basically use that elasticity. Whereas if you're just hanging out, if all your training is just hanging out in a stretch, you'll be able to get in that position, but you may not be able to move fast out of that position or move out of that position with control and strength.
Right. I like to call that owning your position, right? So especially for a golfer, you know, they go to if you take a golfer to the top of their backswing, and if they can just get there, that's cool. But they want to be able to move quickly from that position and with coordination to come back and actually put the club on the ball. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what really drew me to stick mobility at first. And when I got that bow and arrow, this is before I got really deep dive into training only golfers. I've been a trainer for I don't know, over 10 years. So I've been around, but then when I started diving into golfers, I grabbed that stick and I did the bow and arrow, and I was like, oh man, this is my side bend in my golf swing, and it's stretched, and I'm feeling strong here. I was like, I see the value in this. I see how this is going to actually translate over into my swing and make me strong. And, you know, especially for people that end up with back pain and things like that, especially that, you know, that side bend, right there is where, you know, you get in your low back. I thought it was a great tool, and that's what really drew me to you guys, years ago.
Yeah, with that bow and arrow, when you just see the picture, you look at it and you're like, oh, it looks like a nice stretch. But if you're using it to I guess how we intended it to, at the same time that you're bowing the stick, right? To bow the stick, you need some strength. The other thing is when you bow the stick, you have to, without really thinking about it, you're reflexively driving the stick into the ground with that bottom hand. Mm-hmm. So that bottom hand, when you drive that stick with the bottom hand, you're engaging the lat on that side, you're engaging the obliques on that side, and then the top hand has to pull apart, right? So now the lengthened side of your body is also in this isometric contraction. So you're creating length, but then at the same time, you're strengthening that entire line of muscle and fascia. So mm-hmm. That's kind of, and that's kind of the principle behind the whole system there is like, look, we want to create length, but at the same time, create strength while we're doing it using isometrics.
Absolutely. And was it, when I listened to your podcast, was it you or your the other co-founders, Dennis
right? Dennis Dunphy, yeah.
Yeah, and one of you guys said, or maybe it was Ben Shear, I can't remember. One of you guys said strong in the long position. That has stuck with me for some years now, and I thought that's awesome. That's what golfers need.
Yeah,
and a lot of other athletes, but
yeah, throwers, golfers, especially overhead athletes.
I think that, one thing that, again, that kind of fascinates me, and I'm always going to go back to like the business side of things, because I am not a golf coach in the way that Cody is, but mm-hmm. You guys kind of created, mobility is sexy now. Mobility is like everywhere, and we see it obviously on social media, whatever, but again, I feel like you guys were like a little bit ahead of your time, like, or it's just like kind of had your foot in the door right at the right moment when we were like on the precipice of like the sexiness that is mobility. Cause like we were still in the yoga world. Like you, again, yourself were taking the yoga classes, like yoga was a thing in the early 2010s, whatever. So do you think that it was a little bit like right place, right time, or like what made you shift from, cause I was a yoga teacher. And I'd had a yoga background before I got into like group X and training and then lifting weights and whatever that evolution has been for me. But yoga was like the OG or the only thing really that existed for people like that kind of had that like recovery aspect to it in terms of like what other athletes were doing, whether it was running or being a hardcore lifter or whatever. It was like yoga. I feel like you guys came in at the right time. What is your take on that, or do you just feel like again it was like a little bit of stroke of luck, or was there a strategy there?
I think there's always luck with success, right? Or timing, all that. I think all that plays in factor. But I think with the stick specifically, it simplified that element of training, right? Because most people don't want to stretch. It's not something that, they go and it's like, oh, I only want to spend 2 minutes on this and that's it.
Yeah.
I want to, yeah, you're right. It's not a sexy thing. Like, I just want to go get stronger. I want to build more muscle. And I would say that, yeah, mobility has caught on a little bit more if you're in our space. But to the general public, I still think it's still the bodybuilding. It's still that mainstream build muscle, look good. That probably takes the majority for the general public's idea of health and fitness, right? But I think that with the stick, when we started stick stretching, it was just such a simple way to get people to do it because you have this tool. Mm-hmm. And now people like to use tools, whether it's a barbell, a kettlebell, band. So now they have this connection. So then we're like, you know what? This is a great way where we can help a lot of people, and they don't need to spend a lot of time in it because we are adding in that strength element, because that was the missing piece, right? If you're not adding the strength and isometrics, you're not really making this change. So hey, let's teach these classes to our clients. We're seeing great results with our personal training. We expanded it to group classes, and we just kind of let's put it out there, see what happens.
Yep. And you made a good point about how, people don't, as much as people actually say they want to stretch, or like, oh, I hear golfers say this all the time, like, oh, I know I need to stretch more. Like, they just say that. And I'm like, do you actually want, like, do you know what that entails? Like, do you actually want to go okay, go ahead and do a seated forward fold. Go ahead and bang that out for 3 minutes. Do nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. And they're like, what? I don't want to do that. Like, of course you don't. No one wants to do that. But, you can, do, how you guys have like the isometric holds for a few seconds. Like, that's much better. And I think it's much better. So what do you think like would be like using the sticks? What would be like the top 3, or you can elaborate if you want, moves that you would recommend golfers do with the sticks, and, maybe elaborate on what that looks like?
Top 3 for golfers here. Gosh, it's tough, right? Because it depends on the type of golfer.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's just say a professional golfer, right? These are high level movers already.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these guys can get into the positions that you're already asking them to do. I mean, they're professional golfers. They're right there. So for them, it's more of like, hey, let's maintain what you have, and then maybe get stronger in these positions. So for them, it would be, let's keep your hips strong. So I don't know if you're familiar with some of the hip drills that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So like the 90-90 drill.
Yeah.
So if you do the 90-90 with the sticks, and you can do that on the ground, but you add that hanging element to it. So if you're familiar with the monkey hang.
Yep.
So now you basically get into the monkey hang position, but you're in a 90-90, and you go through the rotation. So you're strengthening the hips, but at the same time you're adding in some of that thoracic mobility. You're getting the arms overhead. You're challenging the grip, challenging the shoulders. I think that's a great one for a higher level mover.
Is that the stick in both hands, or is that like on one side that you would have the?
You could do either, but I like the single arm better.
Okay, because I was like two, because like monkey hang, I'm thinking like with 2 hands, but then you got the. But I've spent a lot of time on you all's YouTube, so I've seen a lot of the moves you guys have. So yeah, I've definitely done the 90-90, and I've definitely done the one where you're pulling the stick apart when it's in front of you, and switching. That's and like you're pulling it apart and pushing it back together. I love how you guys do a lot of that stuff too. So yeah, definitely the 90-90 for golfers and their hips, and like I need more hip mobility myself. So
I think we all do.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt for sure. So for a higher level golfer, higher level mover that has good joints and good capabilities, I think that's a great one. Now, if you have your average golfer, right, who's the average golfer? That's someone that's probably in their 40 to 60, right?
For sure. I mean, I'd probably say like my biggest chunk of clientele is like a little older than me, so probably like right at like 40 up to 70,
60, 70.
Yeah, they're getting up there. I mean, and they play. I love playing with 7-year-olds. Some of them just crush it. Like they just put it right down the middle. Well, I played with a guy the other day. His nickname was 180 straight. He hit it 180 yards straight down the middle every time. But yeah, so it's a pretty big spectrum there.
Yeah, for sure. So for that group of people, I want them on their feet.
Right. 100%.
Right. So now we can take that monkey hang and get it up onto their feet. Now they're in a big split stance, so they can open up that whole front side of their body. We start the rotations. We can get 2 sticks on this one now, so they have more stability. But they can get both arms up in the air, get everything moving up in the shoulders. So you have that, but then now we would take 1 stick, and then maybe we get into the slap shot.
Mm-hmm.
The slap shot's a great one because now you have this wide stance. We can start getting into some lateral shifting, get into some thoracic rotation. So you start getting into some of the elements that happen in the golf swing. And then the bow and arrow, right, is a great one for sure, because you get some of that side bending. You start getting the hips to shift laterally, and then you're building strength in that shortened position in that side bend too. So like we were talking about earlier, is kind of mimicking that what impact should look like.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so when you're talking about that split stance, double stick rotation, that thoracic spine, I've had, I watch you guys' video, and that's how I got the inspiration, and pass it on down to my clients. Was someone is, I can't remember how old this guy was. He was an older gentleman, let's say 65 plus. Had him, the split stance, he was a little too unbalanced, unstable on that one, so we went down to like half kneeling. And this was so common. I'd see this, and I saw this with multiple guys, so it wasn't just one guy now that I think about it. But I had him down to 1 kneel, and instead of rotating his thoracic spine, he just would start turning his neck. Right? Like that's all he thought that was, his thoracic spine turning, but it was just his neck, and that was really common. So I don't know if have you seen that, like, you know, like really that's where you really like get the feedback from the sticks is what I thought was great. It's like, okay, now push down into the sticks, feel your lats, you know, and like let's move that body now. So that's why, you know, tools are great just like that, because people were just literally like, oh, moving their head. It's like, no, it's not your thoracic spine. let's get the body to move a little bit, bro.
I remember that story.
It's crazy.
I think that's what's great about like with the slap shot, right? So whether you're in a half kneeling position or you're in that wide stance, you could do that same thing. Now the stick behind your back, it gives you that feedback right away, and you can basically use the leverage, and you say, hey, push your right hand forward. They push the right hand forward, their body turns to the left. Push your left hand forward, their whole body turns to the right. You know, so it's we're able to give them really simple cues without overcoaching, and that's one of the things that we really like too, because especially when you're working with someone that doesn't have a ton of body awareness or doesn't really care to hear, hey, retract your scapula, blah blah blah, do this, do this, do this. You know, I don't think most people don't want that complexity, right? If you're in the training world, cool. You know, you want all that stuff. Oh, I want to know what this is doing. But if you're working with the general public, it's more like, hey, let's do this. Do you feel it here? Okay, you're feeling the right spots. That's great. Now let's add a little bit more intensity, or we'll dial it back. Does your neck feel better now? Can you feel yourself turn? Awesome. And then the stick can give them visual feedback too, to see, hey, am I doing this right? Am I staying centered? Am I shifting? Things like that, which is great for golf, right? Because you want to know, hey, am I shifting too much to the right? Am I staying centered? You know, what's going on here?
Right, 100%.
Comes back to the tools giving the feedback thing. Comes back to why tools can be so helpful as opposed to just doing body weight mobility movements. Sometimes I feel like it's helpful to, especially for golfers. I was just talking to had a consult this morning with a potential nutrition client who's a golfer. And we were like he's all about the data and all about the toys and all about I'm going to buy this next. I mean, Cody now has a collection of lots of golf toys, I feel like, but people love it. And I think getting that feedback and being able to just see yourself making progress and things like that with the consistency of like being able to go deeper into a position, whether it is the bow and arrow or just feel less tight. It's definitely something that's tangible with sticks.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the right, you market to the right people if you market to golfers, because golfers are all about, oh, a new toy that'll help me. Like, give me that.
Yeah.
Where do I sign up?
So what's next for you guys? Like, what's on the horizon? Where are you shifting into? Obviously, I mean, your online forum is awesome. Your YouTube channel is awesome, but so is your private sort of instructional videos, and all of that stuff is great. I'm sure you can access basically everybody across the world with your sticks now, doing that kind of stuff. But are you still focusing in on getting trainer certified? Are you guys trying to do more like B2B, B2C? Where are you guys at now?
Yeah, so we're we have distributors all over the world. I want to say like 7 or 8 different countries now. Our big focus right now too is that online education space. We still want to do live courses and still go to some seminars and try to have speaking engagements there. You know, we want to create some new products for sure. You know, things that are not necessarily the stick, but just in the movement, strength, conditioning world, that are simple, but will, like, with the principles that we've laid down with stick mobility, with that will carry over to that. Because, ultimately, right, we believe that the stick can be used as a standalone tool, but we don't promote it as just we want you to, hey, look, if you want to get the best out of yourself, you have to use everything that you have available to you, right? You can't just use one tool to maximize your performance, because there's only so much strength you can build with a stick, right? There's only so much power you can build with a stick. We need to use other things to get the right adaptation that we want. So we want to be able to expand that into some different tools here in the future.
Yeah. What do you guys have just the sticks right now? Is there another?
Right now it's just sticks, but we'll once we get some other stuff out, we'll send you some product for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I got to experience the pro version because like I bought, like the normal version. I got to experience the pro version of the sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like those. I mean, I'm a pretty strong guy. Those, like, to bow and arrow, one of those things is like you've got to be. And the guy also had like 7-footer. I'm only 5'6", so the longer ones are harder for me, anyways. But dude, that is hard. Like those things are heavy duty. So
yeah, those are super heavy duty. So the intention of those was, we wanted to make sure they were strong enough for NFL athletes.
Oh yeah, okay. So I don't feel bad.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, what are the pro ones? They're just more intense.
Yeah, so they're a thicker diameter. So they're 2 inches instead of 1.5 inches, and they're much harder to flex for sure. The other thing is too, so if you get a guy that's like 260, 270, and they're not as skilled with it at first, for like just mentally, right, to be comfortable hanging on a stick, they're like, I don't know if I could. Is this thing gonna hold up?
Right.
Whereas, I've trained an NFL guy that was 300 pounds, but he was really skilled in moving and understanding how to use his leverage and use his weight properly, so he could hang on a 6-foot standard stick and be fine. But ultimately, it comes down to a safety thing too, right? So if someone's not really trained up on it, but wants to get into the stuff right away, if you're 250 plus, like you're better off with a 7-foot heavy duty stick.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine a stick that's more heavy duty than just the regular one. For people that haven't tried stick mobility, it's very, very challenging.
When you haven't,
in a great way.
You've never experienced like the 7-footer, like the longer one adds a totally different.
No, I think I had a 6-foot at one point. Somebody at the gym, member in Florida, someone had one.
Oh, they had a 5-foot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I don't even know. I just know it was bigger than the one because we're short. We're 5'6".
Yeah.
The collective we is 5'6".
It's the taller people's version of my short one.
It's hard enough as it is. I do not need a pro or an advanced version.
Yeah. Well, so if you do have a 7-footer for someone that's really immobile, right? It like you put it behind your back, if you're doing the slap shot, and you get a 6-footer, sometimes they can't really touch the ground with a 6-footer. So if you give them the 7-foot stick, it allows them to touch the ground and they're still able to get stability from it. Or if someone can't get into that half kneeling position for your monkey hang, then they can grab the 7-footer, stand up, and reach their hand all the way up, and they won't have to bend down too much. So people with bad knees, it's a nice way to scale it for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, Neal, it was really awesome to have you on and share with us your stick mobility journey and some tips for all the athletes out there, whether you're a pro athlete or non. I do think stick mobility is, honestly, it's what's so cool about you guys. It really is for everybody. It's very accessible and truly, like, you can store it very easily and all of the things. So what you guys have going on is awesome. So we're glad to hear your story and that you share it with us.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me on here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and of course, where can people find you? Obviously the Instagrams.
Yeah, Stick Mobility on Instagram. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's @NBStrength.
Awesome. And whoever, kudos to the guy or gal, whoever does like the Adobe Photoshop on your stick mobility videos. I've like written to the handle before. I'm like, who does this? This is so cool. Like, you guys like the way like the instructions go out on those things. So your videos are awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, you guys put out some good stuff.
Is it are you talking about the social media ones with like the arrows and all that stuff?
Yeah, that stuff looks so cool. And I'm like, oh, how do you do that? And then I bet it was JP or somebody wrote me back. They're like, oh, it's someone that does Adobe. And I'm like, oh, that's out of my league, but it looks really good.
I can see Trent over there. Our producer's like, wonder what that is.
I'll figure that out.
Yeah, there's so many good apps now on the phone too to learn that stuff. It just takes time.
But I think what's great is because it's with your product, like, you got some of the instructions on it are so unique and so nuanced to how you guys instruct people to use the stick, like pull it apart and stuff like that. So like some of those things that person draws, like arrows, pull out, it's like awesome. It's good. I'm jealous. I want to do it.
That's encouragement for everyone to head over to your page and your YouTube. And always in our show notes, we shout out Stick Mobility anyway, because I believe Cody has has a code for people wanting to get their own set of sticks, which they absolutely should. And again, like your website's very informational for how people can buy them and which size they should get and all of that good stuff. So appreciate you, Neal. Thanks for coming on.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.